My guest today has 25 years in education, 15 years as the McKinney High School girls basketball coach, currently serving there. She's the assistant campus coordinator, was a 2019 6A Texas State qualifier, has more wins than most of us can count.
I don't know about that.
And I'm so happy and excited and appreciative to have Coach Deb Harris with me today. Welcome, Coach Harris.
Thank you.
This program is going to be built around the concept of success never rest. On your worst day, be good. On your best day, be great. And then on every other day, get better. And I know your past. I've known you for 20 years now, I believe, and from coaching against you and things. So doing my research, I know you're perfect for this. So with that, I just want to get into it and hear what you have to say. So, first thing I wanted to talk about was what influences did you have when you were young, that led you into coaching, teaching, and those things?
Well, first, before we start that, I just want to say thank you for doing this. I mean, this is kind of right up my alley. I'm constantly looking for things that I can do and grow. So I'm real excited about different people that you'll have on this. So thanks for giving back to the game. There's not enough people out there like that. So I appreciate that.
Thanks.
Coaching, let's see. I knew from a very young age that I wanted to be a coach. My background is a little bit complex. My mother passed away when I was 5, and my dad certainly had his own struggles with 3 kids that he didn't know what to do with. So I kind of bounced around from family to family and actually grew up really an angry, bitter kind of kid. I was real defensive about what was going on at home, and often, I grew up with 6 different families. But it was my coaches from a very young age that kind of said, look, where you come from does not determine where you're going. If you want to fail in life, then that's your choice. But stop blaming it on your mom, your dad, your brothers, and do something with your life. So I knew from an early age that coaching was what I wanted to do. I didn't know what all that meant, but I knew that I wanted to try to give back and impact people the way that they had impacted me.
Okay. And who was that in particular? Can you point to one particular person? Was it a coaching staff?
Yeah. I grew up in Sonora, so it's a small town. So, everybody kind of knows everybody. But I think the first real approach that somebody really made that actually I paid attention to was probably a lady by the name of Terry Campbell. She's a golf coach at Hebron, used to be the girls coordinator at Colleyville Heritage. So she was a young coach in Sonora, but she's the one that she's the first person that really kind of pulled me to the side and said, hey, look, I know what's going on. And I was just like, how do you know what's going on? If I'm not telling you what's going on, how do you know? So she was kind of the first, but I really think that every coach that I came in contact in Sonora really had a profound impact on me and what I do. So for sure, there's several of them that I could give credit to.
Okay. In preparing for these conversations with coaches, it's interesting how coaches have influenced all of us into the game, but it's for different reasons.
Sure.
So I guess the next thing I'd like to ask you is, so you're a high school coach and you're a college coach. What type of coaches were they?
Well, my high school coach, he was a pretty intense guy. His name is Clyde Dukes. And the thing that always struck me as interesting with him is that he was really, really intense, but he was also a minister. So I remember oftentimes when he would meet me at half court, escorting me to the bench by the side of my jersey, I kept thinking, how is this dude a minister? But he was tough. He demanded excellence, but he absolutely loved his kids. So it was very obvious. I was really searching for a positive male role model in my life at that time, and he certainly fulfilled that along with several other people. but he was, you know, he was really tough. He expected greatness. Very bright, intelligent man. Loved X's and O's. So, you know, I loved that. In college, I had a couple of different experiences. I had planned on going to Angelo State right out of high school, and they wound up having a change in their coaching staff. So I decided that I wasn't going to go that direction. So I went to Hardin-Simmons my freshman year. Played for a gentleman named Mark Adams, was a great guy. He was a young coach from Michigan, very, very sharp, high energy, but they had just started the program back up at Hardin-Simmons. So it, you know, I loved Hardin-Simmons. I hated Abilene. And it wasn't really what I was looking for. So I decided to go ahead and transfer back to Angelo State. Now that experience probably helped me the most because I learned exactly who I did not want to become as a coach. So I will not name names here, but that lady, she taught me everything I did not want to be. So it was a different, you know, experience for me. You know, I grew up where the word coach meant something. You didn't disrespect your coach. I mean, whatever your coach said is what you did. And that's certainly the same mentality that I carried into Angelo State. But, you know, we had a lot of JUCO transfers that came in and a lot of people that came from different backgrounds that I was not used to, that just didn't really share the same value system. So I hung that out as long as I could, and then decided that, you know, there for a while, I really thought that I was going to go away from the game. And then talking to my high school coach about it before making the decision, I wound up running track and cross country at Angelo to finish my career. And he told me, he said, Debbie, how can you allow one person to take away a passion for something that you love? So find value in the lessons that you're learning, because you're learning something, you know? So, and that's exactly what it was. I learned how not to treat people, what I did not. I didn't know exactly what I wanted to do as a coach or be as a coach, but I definitely knew after that experience what I did not want to do and what I did not want to be. So again, valuable lessons. So for sure.
Yeah. So that kind of fit into learning from your worst days and
100%.
learning, you know, getting better because you knew what you didn't want to be.
Sure.
And our stories, you know, my high school coach is what I never wanted to be.
Yeah.
Was a good guy, just not, you know, what I wanted to be as a coach. So when did you know that you wanted to coach? I think we can all point to a time period when we wanted to do it. Can you point to that?
Well, you know, like I said, from a young age, my coaches in Sonora had a big impact on me. But I think when it actually comes to the game, it was definitely, you know, when I was a kid, women's basketball was not on television very often. You know, when they would get to the Final Four, you know, or Louisiana Tech was playing or Tennessee was playing, then you would see women's basketball. So it was a rare occasion. But when I actually really started getting drawn to the game and the coaching part of it was watching Tennessee play. And I was the kid that was in front of the TV, even actually into a young adult, that was in front of the TV. And I'm not so much studying the game. You know, I'm watching Teresa Witherspoon and all the Louisiana Tech people, but I'm watching Pat Summitt on the sideline. I'm watching every single thing that she did, every move that she made. I would rewind. Just, you know, she was the person that I wanted to be because she was intense. She had high energy. She demanded greatness. You know, all of the things that I thought, if you're going to do this, Harris, you're going to have to do it right. So she was a big influence on me, a big influence. And I actually wound up blessed enough to actually meet her. I had a kid, Ashley Robinson, that I was her club coach that was highly recruited by everybody in the country. And she was either going to go to Texas if she stayed in the state or she was going to go to Tennessee if she left the state. I mean, it was pretty much that was it. So it was a blessing for me that I had an opportunity to kind of build that relationship with Pat early on. And I mean, I'm telling you, it's just, she's had a profound impact on my life. Actually, she is the person that called as a reference to Todd McVeigh for me for this job at McKinney High School. So he kind of still tells that story to this day. Hey, I got a phone call from Pat Summitt as a reference. So that was huge. So I was blessed enough to be a part of Ashley's journey to where I could experience that. But Yeah, I would definitely study her in front of the TV.
Okay. So probably along those same lines, when did you find, your style, your philosophy? When you said, that's how I'm going to do it, you kind of answered it there, I guess. I've, like I said, you were in the Wiley tournament when you were at um,
Ursuline.
Ursuline.
Yeah.
And my first year as a girls coach, first year as a head coach, but I just remember how physical your girls played, how disciplined they were. So, and I played against you in the last 5 years, and I know your teams are still coached the exact same way uh, from an overall aspect. So there was a time before 20 years ago
Sure.
when you said this is how Deb Harris is going to do it. What was that?
Well, I definitely think that I have evolved a little bit, and I know that we're going to talk about that later. But back then, like I said, the word coach meant something, and I was fortunate enough. When I went to Ursuline, a lot of my peers were like, "What are you doing? What are you doing? Why are you coaching in a private school?" But at the time there was an athletic director there named Elaine Meyer, and her mission was to get Ursuline out of that mentality of private school basketball, much like Bishop Lynch. Bishop Lynch had a reputation of being very competitive in the public school spectrum, so that's what she wanted for that program. And it was a challenge because they were not competitive. So I was a young coach. I was 25 years old, and she took a chance on me. And I just, was hard willed. And by God, this is how we're going to do it. We're going to do it my way, or you're not going to be a part of this. The blessing about starting my career like that was that, people that get into Ursuline are highly intelligent people. And there's a lot of support from home in the sense of make your own way, do what you're supposed to do. So the expectations that I had for those kids were really not that different than what their parents had. I just pushed them a little bit harder than what they were comfortable with. But luckily, I had the support of the administration and a parent group. So um, it's a little bit different today than it was back then. But it was, yeah, you're either doing it my way or I'm going to kick you out of this gym or I'm going to kick you off this team. So you can't really do that these days.
I remember that team like it was yesterday. I mean, I
Me too.
remember I remember that game like yesterday. I remember all your girls were mouthpieces.
Yep.
I knew they were all going to take a charge if you took
Yep.
about two dribbles. um, but I also remember the parent support you had.
Sure.
I mean, I specifically remember the parents, and I could just tell they were behind you. And we both know that the parents' mentality has to align with your mentality, or it's a
100%.
very tough job. So,
It helps when
uh,
you have Staubach's granddaughter on your team too, and he's sitting in the stands. That always helps.
yeah, well, players can make us. um, so what kind of along some of those same lines? What are some of your non-negotiables as a coach?
I think a non-negotiable for me is that you have to be willing to look at yourself and admit that when you need to make changes. And I mean, and again, I could do a whole podcast on my perception of educational athletics. And I think honesty and integrity are something that are huge. But I think in educational athletics, we have to dive deeper into that. And we got to get kids to be able to be honest with themselves. We talk all the time when emotions are high, clarity is low. So our kids have got to be comfortable being uncomfortable. And that's that's a non-negotiable for me. So if you can't handle being uncomfortable, then this is not a place for you to be. Because it's not just in the game and the physical realm that you're going to be uncomfortable. But in order for us to grow, we've got to look at some hard things. I mean, some of the best lessons in my life were some of the lowest points. So we try really hard to use the game of basketball to really make our kids equipped to be better people when they walk out of McKinney High School. So I would say if I had to pick one, you have to be okay, at least be willing to get used to being comfortable being uncomfortable.
Gotcha. Because that's where all the magic happens, right?
You're absolutely right.
Outside of that box.
You're right.
So, do you have a personal mission statement that leads your day-to-day life that then obviously leads into your leadership, what you're teaching? And then I'm going to bounce back to your non-negotiable after that.
Okay. We do, and I think everybody does that. Some for the right reasons, some for the wrong reasons. I mean, obviously ours is loyalty, integrity, ownership, never give up mentality, and servant leadership. But we practice that on a daily basis. Our freshman coaches, our JV coaches, and our varsity coaches, we are constantly talking about what all those things do. We're big in McKinney ISD on character reps. That's something that Coach Pratt brought in last year, and I think it's been huge with us. But we spend a lot of time talking about what it means to be loyal to yourself, to your family, to your community, to your school. Having integrity, doing what you're supposed to do, when you're supposed to do it, how you're supposed to do it, because that's what you're supposed to do. Ownership, not deflecting. Kids and even adults today, they want to deflect. It's not my fault. It's not my fault. I do not allow my kids to say that. It is not my fault. Those words are not allowed in our vocabulary. Just owning your mistakes. And then obviously servant leadership, never give up mentality. No matter how hard it is, you're not going to quit. We're going to win gracefully. We're going to lose gracefully, but we're not going to quit. And then just serving others. I'm a huge believer in being a servant leader. And I've had a lot of examples of that in leadership in my life. And that if there is one thing that I want my kids to leave our program with, is that they are there to serve people, because that is the only way that you're going to find true happiness.
True. So back on your non-negotiable, and basically you've got to be comfortable being uncomfortable. Can you point to some particular ex-players that that mentality, you see it in their adult lives now? I know I've got players now that, it's the most proud moment of my life is to see them now, not when they were scoring 20 or getting a college scholarship. Just seeing the growth now and that they continue to grow. So can you talk on that a little bit?
Yeah, I mean, it would be hard for me to single it down to one player. There's a million people that I would hope that have used that. I think probably the one that comes to mind most is Molly Marin at Regis University. She played for me at Ursuline, and she played at Regis, and now she's the head coach there. Mm-hmm. But just she and I are very close to this day. We talk a lot. I'm constantly picking her brains for things. And she has really kind of taken that grit mentality in every aspect of her life. She's competitive anyway. But if you give her a little bit of push and a little bit of confidence, she's done some amazing things. She's been a part of some great Division I programs as an assistant coach. She's been a recruiting coordinator, been very successful. But she would probably be the one that comes to my mind the most, just because I'm in touch with her on a regular basis and just real proud of the things that she's accomplished.